Hello guys, my name is Umo. I'm a fashion designer and instructor. Welcome to University of Pattern Drafting, a channel where I share my expertise in pattern drafting and garment construction through sewing tutorials. And today's tutorial is going to be on how to draft the pattern for an A-line skirt using slash and spread method. And here are the materials that we're going to be needing. You might also need 2.5 yards of Ankara fabric for this project. And here are the measurements that we are going to be needing for this project. So let's get right into the tutorial. Oh, before I begin the tutorial, I wanted to mention that this tutorial is the second part of a 3-part series on how to draft a culotte pants, which is what you're seeing on the screen right now. A culotte pant is essentially a skirt divided into two. So to draft your culotte, you have to first draft your straight skirt pattern, which is what I did in the previous video. You can follow the link in the description box to check that out. And then I am now drafting my A-line skirt pattern before I go ahead to draft the pattern for this culotte. If you haven't seen the tutorial on how to draft a straight skirt, please go follow the link in the description box to watch this tutorial, so that you would understand what we are doing. Okay, so I began, as I mentioned earlier, with my straight skirt pattern. And so my straight skirt has 1 dart in front and 2 darts at the back. To understand how to determine how many darts you should have on your skirt, you have to go back and watch that video so that you understand our dart intake charts that I used in that video. So I've gone ahead to label my center front and my center back, and then the center leg of my dart, my front dart, is 4 inches from my center front, which is the line that you just saw me extending. And then this is my center back. I'm measuring 4 inches also from my center back, which is where the center leg of my dart was placed. So I've extended that line, and I'm going to go ahead and cut out my darts for both front and back. So I'm cutting out the darts for my front. Please note that this is the slash and spread method, so you need to pay attention to how this is done. So once I'm done cutting out this dart, I'm going to go from the hem of my skirt and then cut along that line. I'm going to cut to the dart, but I'm not going to cut through it. Do you understand that? I'm going to leave about 2 centimeters. I'm going to stop at about 2 centimeters to the opening of my darts. Do you get? So I'll bring them together, bring the darts edges together and sellotape that to create an opening at the hem line of my skirt. If you want yours fuller, first off, if you want the fullness of your A-line skirt to start from the waistband, please slash it through, and then at the hem open it as wide as possible. Just leave the 2 edges of the dart at the waist part touching each other just at the edges, so that you have it as wide as you want. You can measure as wide as maybe 4 inches or thereabouts, 4 to 5 inches if you want it much fuller. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same for the back. So for my back, I'm going to be working with, note that I said I have 2 darts on my back, my center back. So I'm going to be working with the dart closest to my center back, not the one closer to my side seam. So if I had 2 darts in front and 2 darts at the back, and I just want minimal fullness, I would work with the darts at the side seam, not this one that I worked with for the front pattern. So since I worked with this one for the front pattern, I'm going to go ahead and work with that other one for the back pattern. Please make sure you take note of that. To even understand how we arrived at having just 1 dart in front and then 2 at the back, please go back and watch that tutorial on how to draft the pencil skirt, so that you can see the dart intake chart that we used and understand how I arrived at this. I wonder why I keep saying we. How I arrived at this. Okay, so I'm cutting out my darts for the back, and it's the same procedure as that of the front. So please take note of that. And then I'm going to go from the hem and then slash through. If you haven't subscribed at this point, you should actually subscribe right now, and make sure you hit the notification bell, because I'll be uploading a tutorial on how to draft a jumpsuit, a very beginner friendly tutorial, and I'm sure you would want to see that. So make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you get notified when I upload new tutorials, guys. And if you find that all of my tutorials have been helpful, please drop a comment in the comment section. I need to get feedback on what I am doing so that I know that it is beneficial to people and I'm really adding value to people. Okay, so I'm going ahead to manipulate my second dart. Because I have two darts in front and one dart at the back, it's going to be awkward to not have any darts in front and then now have one dart at the side of the back, at the close to the side seam of the back. It's awkward. So I'm manipulating that second dart into my side seam, guys. So I measured the width of the dart, which is about 1/4 inch, and I measured the length, which is 5 inches. So I'm going to push that into my side seam, guys. Can you see that? So I've pushed that into my side seam so we don't have any darts there anymore, so it doesn't look awkward. However, if you want yours fuller than mine, you can see mine isn't so full because I don't want my culottes being so full. If you don't want yours, if you want yours fuller than this and you have two darts in front and two darts at the back, you can actually open up both darts. Do you understand? And if you want your fullness to start from the waist, do it the way that I mentioned earlier, which is open up your pattern paper as wide as possible, just leaving the two edges of the dart at the waist touching each other slightly. Do you understand? So you can open up your hem as wide as 5 inches or so. So I've gone ahead to get new pattern paper because I want to trace out my new pattern onto the pattern paper. So I'm going to go ahead and measure what that opening at the hem is. So I'm measuring what that opening is, and then I'm going to, so it's about 2 inches. Yeah, I think it's about 2 inches. 2 inches divided by 2 is 1 inch. So divide what you have by 2 and then transcribe that to your side seam. Do you understand? So that's what you've seen me do. I've extended it at that side seam area and I've blended it into the hip line. So if your fullness started at the waist, blend it into your waistline, not your hip line. Do you understand? So I'm going ahead to measure my my straight skirt pattern and measure the new line that I created to ensure that that length is equal. It has to be equal, guys, so that you don't have that triangular thing just shooting out at the edge of your skirt. So I'm blending in the hem. I'm blending in the hem and then blending in the side seam too, so that I have a more reasonable line. And then I'm also blending the waistline too. So you can blend it in, and then use your scissors to cut out, your paper scissors to cut out your new pattern. If you have not subscribed at this point, guys, make sure you stop and subscribe. And make sure you hit the notification bell so you get notified whenever I upload new tutorials. So I'm cropping out the hemline. Please note that I'm going to be uploading the tutorial for the culotte pants this evening or tomorrow, so watch out for that, guys. And make sure that you leave a comment in the comment section if you find this helpful, or if you have any questions, or if there's any tutorial you want to suggest that I should upload. Okay, so I've cut out my pattern and I'm going ahead to indicate that center front should be cut on the fold, and this is my front pattern. I'm also going ahead to draw out my grain line, which is slightly diagonal. So if you do not want to cut your front on fold, you can actually have a cut in front. You can have a cut in front and even have added fullness in front. Do you understand? So you can also have added fullness in front. You can do that by cutting at the front, cutting at the center of your front, and then slashing open your pattern paper. So this is my back. I've gone ahead to place it on new fresh pattern paper so that I can recreate the same thing for the back. So remember that my back that was 3/4 inches. So the fullness, the the width at the hemline, the added fullness at the hemline is wide. I think it's about 2.5 inches. So I divided 2.5 inches and I measured that at this edge of the side seam. And so that's what you can see me blending into the hip line, guys. Can you see that? I'm blending that into the hip line because I want my culotte to be slightly fitted at the hip area. If you also want your A-line skirt to be fitted at the hip area, this is how you should do it. But if you want your fullness to start from the waist, do it the way I mentioned earlier. So go ahead and blend that properly and then cut out your the pattern for the back of your A-line skirt. Also note that the back can also be cut on fold, and then you have your zip by the side, or and also slash the middle of the back and cut and fix your zip at the back too. But if you added fullness in front, you obviously have to add, sorry, at your center front, you also have to add fullness at the center back so that it rhymes. So if you did that, then you have to place your zip by the side. So I'm going ahead to label my center back and then indicate that it's going to be cut on fold. You can decide to place your zip at the back, so you won't have to cut it on fold that way. So remember, this pattern does not have any form of allowance. So when sewing, please include allowance by your side. The side seam should be about 1.5 inches allowance, and then at the hem to about 1.5 inches allowance, and then at the top, your waistline, you can use 3/8 inches or whatsoever you decide to use. Okay, so this is the end of the tutorial. The next tutorial I'll be uploading would be the tutorial on how to draft the pattern for this culotte, guys. So please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you get notified when I put up this tutorial, guys. Thanks for watching, guys. Ciao.